Welcome to Seggs Talk Radio, a podcast that explores kink and sex through candid and curious conversations. Join me and expert guests in exploring taboos and unpacking what it means to be sex and kink positive. Go check out our new website, sextalkradio.com. That is SEGGS talkradio.com. And I hope you enjoy the episode.
I find that when I meet new men, like just out in person or whatever, like if they go to my Instagram, the first thing that they like comment on is like my sexuality or like my podcast, because it's oral arguments, you know, or like my
great name, by the way. It is.
Or my OnlyFans or whatever it might be. But it's like, I'm also chief of staff at a law firm.
This episode of Seggs Talk Radio is brought to you by the HUD app. The HUD app is changing the face of modern and casual dating by giving users a really fun and flirty interface. And also it has bedroom features where you can select all of the kinky and naughty things you're into and show those to potential future partners. I personally love using the HUD app, and I think it's a great system for finding kinky people near you. Go to hudapp.com/sextalk. That is hudapp.com/SEGGS talk TALK for more. Not everyone wants a purple sparkly dildo, so when Peep Show Toys reached out to me and sent me their line of the Solina hyper-realistic, body-safe, platinum-grade silicone dildos, I was super excited. When I say they are realistic looking, I'm serious. They are very hyper-realistic. They are soft on the outside, they are firm on the inside, and they have a suction on the bottom for hands-free play if that's what you are into. Go to peepshowtoys.com and use code SEGGS, SEGGS, for 10% off of your entire order. When I started optimizing my life around my menstrual cycle, everything changed for the better. That is why I love the Stardust app. It is far more than a period tracker. It is an entire hormonal health universe inside of an app. I've been using it for quite a while now, and what I love the most is the beautiful design. I love that I can share my cycle with a friend or with a partner. I get customized notifications, and I've learned so much about my cycle and about hormones. So wherever you get your apps, search for the Stardust app, and I look forward to your thoughts.
Hey, well, Norma Buster, welcome to Seggs Talk Radio.
Thank you.
Super excited to have you on and jump into a bunch of stuff about tech and, I don't know, owning our content and all sorts of stuff. Do you want to give a little introduction to yourself and background?
Yeah. So my name's Norma Buster. I'm chief of staff at CA Goldberg, which is a victims' rights law firm here in New York. I've been there for 7 years.
Wow.
I started out, it's going on 7 years, but it feels like 7 years.
Totally.
But in some ways, it feels like I just got here. It's crazy how fast it's gone.
Where did you move here from? Somewhere, another state?
I'm from Jersey originally.
Okay.
So I have lived
far.
in Jersey for parts of my time at the firm. And now I'm in New York. But I started out as a client there almost 10 years ago now.
Okay.
With my own experience of being stalked and having my naked images posted online by my ex. So that's kind of how I got into this work.
Yeah.
And then now I have a podcast called Oral Arguments where we talk about sex, tech, and victims' rights. And I'm also an OnlyFans creator.
I love that. I love that so much. I think that part of my journey, because this podcast is pretty new, is realizing that I can do it fucking all, and that there aren't necessarily a ton of other women or role models like doing that, like being in the sex workspace as well as having these entrepreneurial careers and endeavors. I mean, there are, but like it's so nice to find other ones because it can feel isolating at first.
Well, there's so much going up against us, like doing it all, and society tries to tell us that we can't.
Yes.
And I will say, like, I'm so grateful to have a workplace where I'm supported in doing this.
Right. Right.
You know, I had a conversation with CA Goldberg, our founding attorney. She's my boss, was my lawyer. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing an OnlyFans. She's like, are you asking me for permission?
Totally. I mean, I get it's valid to feel like you need to ask for that when women have lost their jobs over that. I mean, I think that there's a lot of things I've seen recently, and you might actually know more specifics about cases, but like a lot of women who are like teachers or like have these jobs that aren't high paying and they supplement income and then they lose their jobs. And so I think it's valid to feel like you need to ask. I felt similarly at my last marketing job that I had, of just kind of like once I left that job, I felt like it could be fully kinkier out in public or like out like on social media. So yeah.
But I also wanted to talk to her about it because I wanted her to understand kind of where I was coming from doing this, because I knew she would see it. I mean, we're on Twitter, we're constantly sharing each other's things. And so, and I'm, representing our firm wherever I go.
Right.
So I was like, well, no, I'm not necessarily like kind of asking for permission, but also like, how do you feel about it? Because if you hate the idea, if it would like bother you, I would take that into consideration too.
Yeah.
But it just, for me, it aligns with all the other work that I'm doing, that we're doing. And, we advocate for sex workers' rights. We represent sex workers. I don't know. It just seemed like I wanted her to see how like it all aligns, and she got it completely. Totally. She was just like, okay, like know what you're getting yourself into. Are you walking into this eyes wide open? Right. And I have legal support, which a lot of people don't have, and so I'm very much like anytime I talk about my sex work, I'm very clear on like, hey, I have these like forms of protection in case something does go wrong.
Yeah. I first became aware of her law firm because of something that happened this summer on the podcast that you might be aware of. But what I was blown away with when I got to the website was just like, oh, this is fucking different. Like it was just, I'd also been researching corporate attorneys because I'm starting a sex tech company next year. Yeah. And I was just like, these are the most sterile, boring man websites with man lawyers. And when I got to your guys' website, I was just like, oh, this is kind of like sassy and powerful and like feminine. And it was just so refreshing. And I was like, oh, I would trust these women. Like it was very cool change.
Yeah. And even for myself, like when I came to the firm almost 10 years ago, and it was different. It was like just Carrie. Yeah. But my mom was the one who found her. And at that point, I had been to the police so many times, and I was just like, what is a lawyer going to do? Yeah. Like I was 19 years old. I was like, so just worn out from everything that was happening. And my mom's like, no, you're going to like her. She's like cool. She's like, she had been looking at her interviews and pictures and stuff. And she's like, you're going to like her. And there was something about just like meeting her. And she was this young person who was like stylish and just like kind of leveled with me.
Yes.
And that's really powerful.
Yes, it is. Can you go back and tell me more about what happened? I didn't get the specifics in the interview.
Yeah. So I had dated my ex-boyfriend for 2 years from 17 to 19. He was my first boyfriend for sexual experience, everything. And I just wanted to be single. Like by 19, I was like, I want to hook up with other guys. I want to go out. I want to, I just knew I wanted to be on my own. And so I broke up with him, and he did not take it well. He started with like an intervention after the breakup. Yeah.
Like so, stay with me intervention?
Yeah.
Was there other people involved?
Yeah. So this girl that I was very close to had texted me, and she was like, this was the day after the breakup. I was at the gym. She's like, hey, can you come over? And like, I basically lived at this girl's house. Like, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll come over after the gym. And so I get there, I like walk in the front door, and in the living room is like her boyfriend, and then my ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
oh, that's aggressive.
What's going on? And he just like kind of, for like an hour, I was sitting there just listening to why I should not rush into breaking up with him and give it another chance and not make this mistake. I'm 19 years old. I'm like...
Was he older or was he about your age?
He was 3 years older. Okay. Yeah. So he was like 22 at that point, I think. And so I agreed to like keep...
So that's how the breakup started.
Yeah. That's how it started. And so from then on, it was just him. Like I would see him, but then it was like he wanted more from me, stay over. Like, why aren't you showing me that you want this? I'm like, because I don't. And it kind of just escalated to him telling lies about like tragic things happening in his family. So I would keep talking to him. Like telling me that his mom had a heart attack and died, and then like within a few days, his baby brother was dying, and then his other brother got hit by a car. And like, you know, this is someone you dated, knew for so well, loved.
Yes.
You don't expect them to lie about something like
Right.
that. And at the last thing with like the other brother, my mom called his dad to see like how everybody was. We weren't close. Like our families weren't necessarily close, but that's when we found out
like,
it was
what are you
all
talking
lie.
about?
Yeah.
It's like a movie. It's like,
like
what the fuck?
Yeah. So I just like ignored him after that. I just like wouldn't respond to anything.
Yeah.
And then he started threatening suicide, which like he knew that I had people close to me that struggled with mental health, and that's like not something I would ignore. And so he like kind of kept that going for a while, and then when that wasn't working, because I would just kind of like push him off to like friends or other people.
Yes, it's not your responsibility.
It's not, yeah. And once he saw that like I truly was not going to answer that call, then he started threatening me with my images. And like he had these naked pictures of me from when we were in a relationship, and I asked him to delete them after the breakup. He gave me a hard time about that. Red flag. And then he did delete them, but then he had them backed up on his iCloud. So he started threatening me with those. And
where was he threatening to post them? Or
anywhere. Like he would constantly text me and like taunt me and be like, check Facebook. Check Facebook. Check Facebook.
That's horrific. That's like...
Yeah, and then I would go on Facebook, and then he would be like, they're already out there. Like, it was just like fucking with my head.
I mean, that's like nervous system fuckery.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
wow.
So finally it escalated to a point where a friend called me because they were like, what is your ex doing on Twitter? And he was tweeting like all these things about me, just like shit talking. But then also he started getting like threatening, like, you're going to be lucky to work at McDonald's after this. Shit's going to spread, you know, like just kept going. And so that's when I went to police for the first time with my parents.
There was the written threat.
Yeah.
This was
like
before photos.
Yeah. Like he was threatening the photos. He hadn't actually released them, but then he was saying like there are printouts, you know, like he would just like I didn't really know. Yeah. And there were times when I was like, are they out there? Like I didn't know. Right. And then so I went to police. They put me on the phone with my town judge. And they were like, you can try to get a like temporary restraining order. She was like, yeah, you know, like I don't know. Like
restraining orders are weird. Like I was considering it this summer, but they're a lot of work. And then I don't know. I mean, you probably have more insight into that, but
yeah, I mean, they are really helpful, like as we've seen with like a lot of our clients.
Yes, and to build a case as well.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, if you want to get like police to do anything, that takes so much longer. So like, and by the way, I'm not an attorney. I have to preface that.
Yeah, of course.
But you know, I've
around a lot of legal stuff.
Yeah, and what it could do is like, instead of waiting for police to do something and like subpoena websites and like, prove that it's this person, if you can get a restraining order and then they contact you, like that contact you can report, and then that they could be arrested.
And that's a crime in and of itself, right?
Okay. Right. Yeah. So like, so it's helpful in the sense that it could be a really good deterrent. Yes. Because they know that if they do this shit again, like they're gonna get arrested. Yeah. So it does work in many instances, of course, like not every single instance, but
and in general with restraining orders, you want to have like you had really solid proof because there were fucking tweets. Yeah. But in other cases, it can be a little bit like it can be harder to get it approved or granted.
Yeah, and then like certain states have different rules and like
yes,
what
they do.
Get you a restraining order. So actually, this is relevant in New York. You need to have an intimate relationship with someone in order to get a family court order of protection against them. So, like, if you're being stalked by...
like a random guy?
A random guy or a former coworker or, like, a fan, that
can we get that changed?
Yes. So
what the
we're actually trying to get that changed.
Okay, absolutely. The fuck not.
Yeah, 21st century anti-stalking bill.
Okay.
To get passed in New York.
Okay. Let me know how I can help.
Yes.
I get really fired up about
stuff. Yeah. We'll connect after about this because we're
makes me so mad.
Actively working.
So many of these things are not, and I was hearing you talk about this in your interview that I listened to this morning, of like, this stuff is not designed for the way that technology is being used right now. Like, this is some like 1950s housewife, like, oh, the guy stalking you is your fucking husband, or like whatever. Yeah. So much stalking happens with people that have social media following. Like, I have to block people every day.
Exactly. Exactly. But
wow. Okay.
Yes, that's my whole spiel.
I'm like, I digress. Yeah, because I can get really pissed about that stuff too.
Well, even with that, so I ended up losing the restraining order in court the first time.
Okay.
So I got this temporary restraining order that night on the phone with the judge. Like, I'll give it to you, but I don't know if this is going to work. And then they just said, like, oh, you'll get a letter in the mail saying you need to go to court. I'm like, okay, never done this kind of thing before.
Right.
My family doesn't
You're
have
19
experience.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so I show up to court with printouts and my mom.
Oh.
Like, I just had, like, printouts of his tweets and, like, his threatening messages.
Yep.
And then he showed up with an attorney, and I didn't know. Like,
and then you also have to end up in this. Well, I think that can be part of the reason why it can be also traumatic or people avoid it, is because then you often have to see the person, right?
Oh, yeah. We're in the courtroom together.
That's not logical to me. Yeah. From also like a mental health and safety perspective.
Oh no, and it like his attorney really like grilled me and like made me sound like I was the obsessed one, which like I wasn't at all. Like there was nothing. He would just ask me questions. I'd be like, no, I didn't do that. No, that's not true. And like, but it just was like getting me upset.
Yep.
So I lost a restraining order that day.
Yeah.
And about another month passed. You know, we were going to the same gym. He was kind of like not speaking to me, but I was being walked out of the gym every night by the guys who work there because they were like, Jesus. Let us know when you leave.
Yeah.
We don't feel good about this situation.
Wow.
And then about a month later, like randomly, I got a text saying like, hey, it's this person from Pornhub. And I was just like, fuck.
Wait, what do you mean from Pornhub? An employee? Or what do you mean?
No. Just like a person who had seen me on Pornhub because I started asking questions and I'm like...
Videos or photos?
It was photos.
Okay.
And so I ended up like doing some searching because he wouldn't send me a link.
Yeah.
I ended up finding this random guy's profile, looked at who he was subscribing to, see my picture, and then I click on it. It's a whole profile with my name,
my God,
pictures, my address, my phone number.
Home address?
Yeah, he actually got the house number wrong, which I don't...
Right.
Whatever, but yeah.
So dangerous, though.
Yeah. I mean, they could have found...
Yeah.
He had made the profile the day before. Okay. So actually...
Pretty
thankfully,
efficient.
Someone did. Yes. Yeah, someone did like contact me the next day thinking that I had done this myself.
Right.
So I like went straight to a police station, ended up like looking for a phone number for Pornhub with the police. Like they're on their computer, I'm on my phone. I end up finding it. They direct me to a removal page. They removed it very quickly.
Yeah.
And then police didn't really know what to do. Put me on the phone with the town judge again.
They didn't know what to do because there's no guidebook for this shit. And that's why like the work you guys are doing at the firm is so important, is because like this is new territory.
Yeah, but New Jersey had a law criminalizing this.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing. So like in 2015, when this happened, New Jersey was one of 3 states that had a law criminalizing the non-consensual dissemination of intimate images.
Okay, great.
So that should have helped me, but they still didn't know what to do. So they put me on the phone with the town judge, said you could try to get another restraining order. She said, well, this is why you don't send pictures to anybody. When you send pictures to one person, it's like asking for it to be put on a
so shaming you
billboard,
and telling you it was your fault.
Yeah.
Or you asked for it.
Yeah. And she's like,
Great.
I don't know that this was him. I'm like, he was threatening me for months. He's the only person who had these pictures.
I'm so tired of like this outdated kind of boomer era of sex in general. Like I just did a big poll because I want to build an STI related company next year. And I started taking quotes from people of things that doctors have told them about sex shaming, slut shaming, STI shaming. And it is like
Oh my God.
so awful.
Only imagine.
And like just similarly to that judge. And the fact that it was a female. It's like, well, you did this. So
exactly.
This stuff makes me so mad.
Yeah. But long story short, my mom ended up finding CA Goldberg.
Yes. Yes. Full circle.
Lawyer in Brooklyn who was the only
baddie.
person. Yeah. The only person at the time talking about this thing called revenge porn, which I never had heard of. And like now we don't call it revenge porn. We call it image-based sexual abuse.
Can we talk about that really quick?
Yeah.
I think I know the reasoning, but if you could explain.
Yeah. So revenge porn, it's not revenge because there's nothing a victim of this crime can do to deserve
Makes it sound like they deserve it. And porn actually makes it sound like it's like
consensual.
Yes.
Porn is consensual. So it's just like not an accurate term.
It's like really not accurate. Yeah, that's really not.
Yeah. Right. And you know, I will say when I was going through it, it was the only word. And I'm like, oh, so this is what it is. Like it helped to have something to call it at the time. But like now we're evolving cultural, like we're seeing the cultural shift around it. And so people are talking about it differently. Which is great.
No, that's a helpful distinction.
Yeah. So she helped me, we escalated it to the like prosecutor level, like they ended up opening investigation against my ex.
Because they have to prove that he was the one that created this account, right?
Yeah. So they had to like subpoena the accounts. It was a
from
whole
Pornhub
process. Yeah.
Or MindGeek.
Pornhub, and then MindGeek at the time. And then from like AOL or Yahoo or whatever, like email AOL. He used. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he might have used it
back in the day.
Yeah, like Norma Buster 2 at AOL.com or something like that.
Oh God.
And so they were able to prove it was him. He ended up getting criminal charges.
Yeah.
Pled guilty to invasion of privacy and got 5 years probation.
Invasion of privacy?
That's what New Jersey's law had like. So actually, it's kind of interesting. This like gets into weeds a little bit, but New Jersey, the way that its invasion of privacy law was written in a way that like looked ahead to how technology might be used, right? So it like we can think about like how technology might evolve and like design our laws around that, and New Jersey was one of the few that did that. Since then, now we have like I think 49 states plus DC that have laws.
But isn't it with what's the correct terminology for this?
Image-based sexual abuse. Image-based
sexual abuse. Isn't that per charge or per photo? Like, is there anything there? Or was it just for him? Was it one overall charge? But I think there are some cases where it can be like counts of.
I think that would probably have to be evaluated by an attorney, and it probably depends on like the state law. But this was just like one charge of invasion of privacy.
Term doesn't sound harsh enough.
But you know, he got 5 years probation, which is the max he could get. He could have gotten jail time, but he took a plea deal. So,
not sex offender list. That's separate. Okay.
Yeah. Which like, again, I think that's like a state by state thing.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So what was the evolution from that to where you are now? And how did you heal from that?
How am I healing?
Yeah.
You know, like I'm at such a different place now. But I still have PTSD, I'll say.
For fucking sure.
Yeah, like definitely have trust issues and commitment issues and everything. But I have come so far, and a big part of that was meeting Carrie and her telling me from the start, like, I just want you to know this isn't your fault. That was like the first thing she said to me. And it just...
Well, that's a nice juxtaposition from a judge telling you basically signed up for this.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, she gets it.
Yeah. So, She was being interviewed for the New Yorker while my case was going on.
Oh, wow.
For like a profile. And this was going to be like a big profile that would like kind of launch a lot of like publicity around her and her firm and the work she does. And she was like, do you want to be a part of this?
Holy shit.
Yeah. So this journalist from the New Yorker like came to sentencing day, listened to the sentencing statement, and then like
I've got chills.
My story was part of this article. At the time, I only used my first name because I wasn't sure yet.
Of course.
Like, I don't know if I want to.
Was there big emotions there around like, I fought so hard to not have this be public in a way, like not obviously like the Pornhub profile, but then all of a sudden, was it a big decision to be like, yes, I want this fully
It was
out there? Feels like it'd be heavy.
It was a heavy decision. And that's why I was like, well, okay, I think I should tell the story, but I can decide later if I like want to be associated with this forever.
Right.
You know, like
I can always change names and stuff too before articles come out.
Exactly. Yeah. And so at the very least I could like start with my first name. It was also like considering, you know, my family was so supportive through all this.
Good.
But at the same time, I grew up in a very like Christian Cuban American home where this was not what they ever expected their daughter to be, you know, talking about publicly or known for.
Well, and also just, I mean, even coming to your parents saying like this thing happened or like I sent naked photos, because that wasn't an era even 10 years ago where like news were not sent the way they are now.
Yeah.
At all.
And for them, it was kind of like, well, this is a lesson you learn, you know, like, but we're going to do everything we can to like stop this from getting out there. But, you know, they didn't necessarily feel comfortable with the idea of like me talking about this publicly and like, what if a family member sees it and like what, you know, like all of these things.
Oh, I get it. I have the sex podcast has been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You know, this could be on the internet forever, right? I'm like, yes, Mom.
Yeah, I still have family members that don't know about the OnlyFans, and I'm just like praying that they never Google me.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, so
the article
so that came out like after and
after sentencing, like once it was done.
Yeah. And I felt like that kind of gave me this like, oh, okay, like my story could be used for something powerful. And so I was in college when all of this was happening.
Wow.
Yeah, graduated and then went to Spain to teach English. I was going to stay there for a year, but 6 months in, Carrie had emailed me saying like, hey, I have this job opening coming up. We stayed in touch. And the Me Too movement happened while I was in Spain. So I was feeling very like, you know, having all these memories and feelings and like feeling inspired and worked up. And I was like, oh, there's no question I'm coming home.
Oh.
So started out as client relations coordinator. Doing intakes. Now as chief of staff, I run like the whole like business operations of the firm. And
how many employees are there now?
It's like around 12 to 14 of us.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so it's been amazing to be part of that growth.
Yes.
I also meet with potential clients. So like I've met with thousands of survivors in my career.
That's heavy. That's heavy work.
It is. But it's so fulfilling. And to know that like, you know, that experience I had with that judge versus the first conversation with Carrie, like I know how much that first interaction with somebody.
You get to be that person.
Yeah. Now I get to be that person and I get to train other people how to be that person and like leave someone not feeling shamed or judged or like misunderstood.
Yes.
And so, but at the same time, I also saw the need for like sex positivity through all of this and like healing.
Yeah.
And I found that I was finding healing through sex positivity and through finding different ways to like reclaim my sexuality. And part of that was like exploring my bisexuality and like I started dating couples and
fun.
Yeah. And that was really fun. And that I think what probably appealed to me about about it the most was like having commitment issues and like not wanting to get into a relationship. I was like, oh yeah, this will be fun. We'll have threesomes.
Yeah.
Like, and then ended up like getting really close and like forming these like deep bonds and friendships with these people. And found healing through those relationships. And, you know, I would work with like sex workers and would realize that the shame that they were experiencing from the outside, especially when like they would experience any form of sexual violence, like I saw that shame as coming from the same place as like the people who would shame me for ever having taken a naked photo.
Yeah. If you are watching or listening to this, you are probably interested in sex and or kink and are curious about finding new partners to explore things with. However, it can be difficult to find those people. The thing I love about the HUD app is that it's more than just an app. They have a community, a podcast, and a ton of education. And inside of their app is a bedroom feature, so you can select all of the things you're interested in, all of the things you want to try, all of the things you don't want to try, and that can be shown to potential future partners. So to learn more, go to hudapp.com/sextalk. That is hudapp.com/sextalk, SEGGSTALK. Look, I am a vibrator girl through and through. However, I think it's really fun and important to bring in an element of penetration to solo or partnered play. That is why I'm excited to share with you guys the Solina line of hyper-realistic dildos brought to you by Peep Show Toys. They are a line of 3 different sizes of super realistic dual density silicone dildos. Not only do they feel and look extremely realistic, but on the inside you have a thicker, more dense silicone, so it really does feel like a real erection. Get 10% off of your entire order at peepshowtoys.com using code SEX, SEGGS.
I couldn't see like the difference and like, you know, when I tell my story, I get victim blamed, but I also do get like a lot of support.
Yeah.
But when a sex worker tells her story, like she doesn't get that level of support.
Right.
And I couldn't understand like why my story would get sympathy and a sex worker's wouldn't.
Totally.
And so that really pushed me to fight for like more inclusion of sex workers, ask questions about why sex workers.
We're gonna be good friends when I move here.
You're moving here.
I'm moving here in March. I just decided working on a sugar daddy to pay my rent. I think I got it, so we're good. The city is like sucking me in. Like I had such a limiting belief about like being able to afford rent here, and I'm like, this is like it's all happening. And I'm really just ready to be around people that are doing the damn fucking thing. And like it's the city is everyone is very creative and unique, and they have to be hard workers to pay their bills here. And like for me, that's really refreshing because I've always been the hard worker and like the one in the friend group doing the most. And anyways, back to sex worker stuff. Like I'm very passionate about it. I've been sugar dating and doing sex work for a while. I haven't fully come out about some of the stuff I'm doing now, but I also do some pro dom work. And like I also like to preface by saying that I have a very privileged experience of it. Being white, being cis, and not having to do it like out of any place of like necessity. So I know that there's a lot of privilege. However, my personal experience has been amazing. And I can't believe some of the experiences that I encounter from the outside narrative. Like I had a guy find something of mine recently, and the message was like, how can I help you, save you? Do you need money? Do you need work? Like, and it was just like, there's such big shifts to happen there. And I guess I'm curious from your standpoint, because it's so different, like in Europe, for example, like it's legal. It's like, I'm curious what kind of trouble I guess people could actually get into, or what kind of cases you help sex workers with.
Yeah, and we're not, our firm doesn't necessarily handle like the criminal aspect, but like our lawyers will liaise with law enforcement. So if like we need law enforcement to get involved, like kind of being that in between to make sure that nothing incriminating happens against a sex worker.
in New York, for example, do sex worker, can they go to jail for doing sex work? Like,
I'm not sure.
I know you're not aware.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the exact penalties, but like,
yeah,
prostitution is a crime, and I think that the DA's office has said like they weren't
actively,
like they wouldn't prosecute those crimes, but then like you see raids on like spas and things like that like,
which is kind of discriminatory when you think about it.
Yeah. So like ultimately we just need to decrim.
Yes.
We need full decrim. But
yes.
What our attorneys will do is like sometimes like if sex workers are being stalked by a client or like threatened to be outed, sometimes the client will discover their legal name. Or, you know, they become close and the sex worker ends up revealing.
That's what that's called,
and they
right?
end up, to dox them. So sometimes we'll get involved to try to like scare the shit out of this guy. And
I think what's so fucked up because it's not decriminalized is that sex workers don't understand their rights. And so they don't often seek out legal counsel or support or anything to protect themselves from these people or clients because, I mean, prostitution is illegal. So why are they going to go seek support when they could end up, you know, being in trouble for it? It's like it's very gray area and confusing. And I think it actually creates more harm for sex workers.
Well, yeah, because the most abusive people will take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
If a sex worker gets sexually assaulted on the job, sometimes what we could do is send a demand letter to the offender. Like the attorneys will do that.
What's a demand letter?
Like a financial settlement. Like we'll sue you if you don't, you know, like so
or if they don't pay.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's the whole thing. Like we can sometimes get our clients financial settlements.
But even a sex worker going through those stages of I'm going to reach out to an attorney because I feel like I can do this safe, like I can do this without getting myself in legal trouble. Like it's just, anyways, let's fucking decriminalize it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm also very adamant about being like intentional and loud and proud about supporting sex workers.
Same.
Like our law firm has always represented sex workers and supported them, but it's been important to me as I've like grown within the firm to make sure that sex workers know we're here for them.
Yeah,
you know, because it's true,
and they do have legal rights. Sex workers have legal rights.
Have legal rights,
and it's important to understand that.
Yeah, and there's going to a law firm, like that's confidential,
right?
You know, there's no harm in like just seeking if you do have options.
Right.
Like that's making a phone call is free.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think even chatting about this too, it's important to say that like you can also have a career in sex work without having any of this stuff happen too, you know, without stalking or assault or, and I mean, I think that even before I started exploring it, had my own preconceived notions of what it looked like, what a client looked like, acted like, you know, and it's, for me personally, it's been none of that.
And often when I do speak with sex workers who experience these things, usually they're like, all of my experiences are really good. Like this is the one that's like fucking everything up for me.
Totally.
And all it takes is that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to do, and I'm curious how I can use my community to help you guys. And I don't know, like bills, support, going to rallies. I feel very strongly about decriminalization as well. And my plan is to go to Europe next year and really try to understand like how they navigate sex work and just kind of the general stances towards it. Because I know there's still lots of judgment there. But I plan to go the Sexual Health Alliance. They're doing a couple of study abroad trips.
Yeah.
And so I want to go there and kind of see what's going on.
Well, it's funny because I am like involved in a lot of like activism for like image-based sexual abuse and global activism and in a global coalition. And like I'm constantly bringing up sex work. Like, hey, what about sex workers? Because there are activist organizations, activist individuals who are very anti-sex work.
Yes.
And so I think it's important to be like extra loud in these kinds of situations. But it's funny because the European people are always like, what's the issue? Like, we don't understand. They're like,
I mean, same with STI stuff. When I was talking about it on my page, they're like, wait, you have to pay to get tested at some places? Like, it's just so different there. And I've never been. So I'm really excited to just see like how sex is perceived and the health side is navigated and the sex work side, because it's different. But, you know, my stance on sex work is like, it's the oldest profession. It's not fucking going anywhere. And when it's not decriminalized, it gets pushed into darker corners and people don't seek out legal support. There's no way for people to fucking bank. Like, it's just a mess.
My entire life changed when I started tracking my hormones and my menstrual cycle more closely. That's what I love about the Stardust app, is it's far more than a period tracker. It is an entire hormonal health universe inside of an app. It is beautifully designed. It is fun. It is hilarious. And it is extremely educational. It has helped me redefine a relationship with my cycle that makes it much more lighthearted. And it's extremely helpful as you go through the month. Wherever you download your apps, go and search for the Stardust app, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
The first company I built was a cannabis company, actually, and so I have a lot of experience with like strict regulatory systems.
Risky business.
Yes, high risk credit card processors, 20% fees, like all that bullshit, and it's the same thing. And you know, speaking of sex tech, like I also really want to, the second company I want to build is like I want to build a high-end escort directory, but like that's like aesthetically nice. Like, I don't know, so many of these websites are just awful design, awful UX, and like obviously built by men 20 years ago. And I just think we need such an overhaul, and we need way more women involved in the space. We need sex workers advising these websites. Like, it's a mess, and it's overwhelming. The amount of change that needs to be created. But I think, you know, the stuff we're both doing is super fucking important.
It is. If all of us are just doing like everything we can, we're moving the needle. I like truly believe that.
So the decision to start an OnlyFans, what was that like? And what was that like first post like? Because I have a Patreon, but it's like there's certain little moments where I'm like,
yeah. Sometimes I still send things out, and I'm like, oh, that was a lot.
That was a lot.
But so as I was like advocating for sex workers, meeting more sex workers, like becoming close friends with sex workers.
And by sex work, do you mean also online sex work? Or do you mostly mean in person?
Okay. Yeah, I'm referring to like the umbrella term.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I was kind of getting more ingrained like in these communities. And I ended up meeting a few women who I had them on my podcast, Megan Sims and Chrissy Chambers, who are OnlyFans creators, online sex workers, and had been publicly survivors of image-based sexual
were those the two women that were on your second episode?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's what I was listening to.
Yeah, so, and they're women who have, like, changed the world with their activism.
Yeah, they've changed policy.
Yeah. So that was the first time I ever met people who had been through something like what I had been through, and then went on to do OnlyFans. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that this was like an option.
Did you feel like people would be like, invalidate your initial experience because now you're selling it?
That was part of it. But like, I wasn't even giving myself the chance to consider it. Right. And so first I had to like give myself like, oh, like, well, would I want to do it? And I'm like, I'm already posting sexy pictures on Instagram.
For free.
For free. Like, why am I not making money off it? I don't have to do like full porn if I don't want to.
Anything. Like, PSA for people listening, like, on my $10 Patreon, you're just getting sexy pics.
Exactly.
That are banned.
Yeah. So, I let myself sit on it for like almost a year before I actually did it, because I really wanted to like be so sure of it. And then as my 28th birthday was coming up in August, my birthday is August 8th. So the summer was coming, and I'm like, I'm going to do it. Like, it was just
summer,
like,
or longer ago?
A year ago.
Okay.
Yeah. 2023. So I was like, no, I just got to do it.
Yeah.
It was like
when it's time.
Yeah, I was like feeling this pull inside.
Yeah.
And so the first post, like I like had my tripod and like did like this lingerie shoot in my room, and I typed out this whole long caption about how, for me as a survivor of image-based sexual abuse, this is a form of like reclaiming my images
that I own, that I
like
dictate.
These are mine, and it's behind a paywall, and you're not allowed to share this with anybody else. Like I have a whole disclaimer in my OnlyFans bio.
Fuck yes.
Saying like, this is my content. I own the copyright.
Yep.
If you share this without my consent, I have legal resources at my disposal. Like,
do you have that caption that you can share with other women? Like, I feel like I've seen women post stuff like that before, but
it's
probably better. Yours is probably really strong.
I don't know. But I mean, I just like typed it up myself. Was like, don't
run it through ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT. I just think that like for women that do have profiles, on OnlyFans or whatever,
I'll send it to you. What I have in mind, but
because you do like there's copyright. You have
exactly.
Can people screenshot on OnlyFans technically? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
sucks.
They're
working on technology for that. Like Sunroom has anti-screenshot technology, but
there's so many things about OnlyFans that like with the user experience.
Oh, I know. That's why I went to Patreon. I was like, this is from 13 years ago. What is this design? Ugh. I'm a design hoe, obviously, but I do wish because there is anti-screenshot technology. It's on Field as well. Like you can screenshot communications with people, but if like you screenshot a chat, the photo will be blank. So like, there's just like there is technology being created that can protect people from their images. So come on, OnlyFans.
Yeah, I mean the one thing they have is that you can check so that they can't download videos.
That's good.
But
you could screen record.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's more there. But and then I posted a lingerie photo on Instagram and Twitter. It just like hit post and felt my stomach.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
Done.
Were you afraid about getting negative comments?
Yeah, I think I thought about it a lot, and I think one of the biggest things was like being treated differently by people around me. And it's like, I know not to internalize that, right? Like I know who I am. I'm confident in my choices.
Said than done, though.
But but like when you're literally
hard.
Being treated differently and like someone like is judging you and you have to interact with them, or there's somebody who you did care about, like that's hard.
Yeah.
And like I said, I still have family members that don't know about it, and I'm dreading the day when I have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
So that was part of it, like knowing like, okay, there might be people who like I respect, who have respect for me, who might lose that respect. And like, are those people who respect I actually need? Probably
Or do they
not.
deserve, do they deserve your friendship or whatever?
Yeah.
But it is easier said than done. Like, I think we undergo a lot of conditioning to be like people pleasers as women and want to make everyone happy. And so for me, what was so strange was from going from like CEO entrepreneur in terms of how I was perceived to like sex kink girl and sex podcaster, and like literally also just the way that men DM me and like suddenly they don't respect me because I'm sexually explorative, and suddenly they think that I want to fuck them because I'm sexually explorative. Like it's so weird. And I mean, my podcast grew really fast. Like the 3rd episode went viral. And so it was like all of a sudden this way of seeing how men in society views me differently simply because I'm like sexually open and sharing about it. It was fucking weird.
It is weird. And like, I find that when I meet new men, like just out in person or whatever, like if they go to my Instagram, the first thing that they like comment on is like my sexuality, or like my podcast, because it's oral arguments, or like my
great name, by the way. It is.
Or my OnlyFans or whatever it might be. But it's like I'm also chief of staff at a law firm. Like,
and we can do it fucking all. And if we did it, it doesn't matter. Like it's hard. And what I just have to keep reminding myself about dating is like the right guy isn't going to put me in a box or a category because I have these things. I mean, I don't know where this man is, but he's going to need to be okay with sex work and podcast and working my ass off all the time and being kinky. And
no, I've been single for going on 10 years
You've
now.
been what?
Single.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been single for going on 10 years now. And
is that what the city does? Because I'm moving here. She's laughing. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of that I think was my trauma in the beginning. Like,
sure.
But, and like not ever wanting a relationship again and being scared that like if I get into a relationship
intimacy
with someone.
Could lead to like, well, they're just also
gonna,
with like the fact that he was doing like the suicide threat thing, which from a narcissist can often not be real and is very harmful. And I feel like has happened to almost every woman I know.
Yeah.
So of course you're going to feel like if you get into something, you could end up trapped or like manipulated or like that's a
feeling
heavy thing.
Trapped. That's the thing. Or like that I would get into a relationship with a guy and that he would try to take the life out of me or like dim my fire or something. And
well, being in like the sexy space and having these accounts and doing these things, sometimes when I meet a more like I call them vanilla guy, like I start to feel myself trying to almost shift or like, okay, could I do life without sex work or without the podcast or like wanting to accommodate his version of like monogamy or normalcy and it's even like subtle sometimes, but it's like that's obviously not the right guy for me. But I just think that there is internalized shame that I'm still navigating as somebody in this space. Oh my gosh, like what's he going to tell his parents at Christmas? Like running through all these insane things.
No, I get that, and I'm a very avoidant person.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
Oh my god.
So
do you summon anxious attachment boys? Because I'm the opposite. I'm anxious and I find these avoidant motherfuckers.
I think I do, but then at the same time, like I was just telling my therapist about this.
Bring it.
I think I have dialed back on dating and avoided meeting new people since starting the OnlyFans. Because I don't want to have to deal with that conversation. And I'm almost like, I'll just let it not like you have to like see all that I am and then like want me.
Yes.
Like I don't want to have that conversation with someone and then have to deal with either their negativity or I don't know.
But that's almost
holding me back.
And I'm about to get therapist. Sorry, we're about to be therapy. Like it's just it's almost anticipating rejection or anticipating judgment. And it's such a double-edged sword of like I've recently was seeing a guy who I met out in the wild, which is rare for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm sober, I don't drink, so I'm like I just don't go out a lot.
Yeah.
But I met him out in the wild. And then it was a process of do all of these morals and these things align, and they do not. But it's still it's like which one is worse? Or which one is better? I don't know. Versus like meeting a guy on a dating app, seeing all of these things, maybe exchanging Instagram, so like he sees everything about my world, but then meeting in person and being like, is there going to be a spark? Is there going to be an attraction? And also like, my Instagram is a bit of a persona. Like, I'm trying to get you to buy my shit and give me money. Yeah. Like, so it's a double-edged sword, I guess, of like, compatibility.
That's it too. Like, I was about to say, like, maybe I just need to start giving out my Instagram before we meet.
Sometimes I do. Of just, like, go figure it out. Like, go listen to my podcast. Also, like, I don't want to explain what kink is to you. Like, just go do your research. But then I sometimes get put in a box of, oh, she's the kinky girl that I can try all these new things out with. And I'm like, I'm actually looking for a fucking husband. I mean, not really, but, like, I'm looking for a serious relationship.
Yeah.
So... anyways.
I know.
It's not, I'm moving to New York and I'm so jaded by dating. It's not a good time.
Yeah, I don't know that moving to New York will help with that, but
I honestly just have like a lot of like I just have a lot of like fucking boyfriends and it works out.
That's great. I love that.
I'm kind of like in a dom era, and so I have a lot of like submissive guys that I date and play with, but it's like really fun because I'm very just in charge of the dynamic and the relationship. And so it's like there's not exclusivity there, but it's still I get a lot of attention. So it's fun.
I love that. See, I feel like I'm pretty dominant in my day-to-day life, and then like stereotypically want a more like dominant guy.
Totally.
But then my trust issues are there. So I'm like, well, I don't know if I'll ever be able to like trust a guy enough to be submissive to him. I think I'll get there, but like it's just hard to see that without actually meeting that guy. And I'm very picky.
I tell women, because I started on the very submissive side of things even only like a year and a half ago, to be like really careful with submission and surrender in the bedroom, because it is so vulnerable. And if you don't trust the person, it can be really harmful. Like I tell women to be very careful with that if it's a new person, because it can be an altered headspace. It can be abused. And I think it's very sacred. And like there's subspace, which people talk about, like that period kind of in the after or like during, where you're not necessarily totally conscious to be able to consent to something new that like wasn't negotiated before. Yep.
It can get a little like dicey. Yeah.
Okay, where were we? Avoidance, dating, OnlyFans. Yeah, OnlyFans. So you did the first post, and what has the journey been like since then?
It's been great. So I do like lingerie content and implied nudes. So I'm naked, but like covering my nipples, you know, like, and then do some video calls for more.
I think it's important to tell people that they can do whatever they want on these platforms, like whatever they feel comfortable with, because I talk to a lot of women that are like, I really want to start it, but, you know, and I had an OnlyFans for like a few days before I moved to Patreon, but just because I had such a preconceived notion of what happens on OnlyFans, I got on and I was like, this doesn't feel authentic to me. I don't want to make porn. I don't want to make videos. I like taking photos. And I didn't really understand the platform and that I could do whatever I wanted. So I moved to Patreon to do mostly like photos, but you can make it whatever you want. And even like with my Patreon, I've shifted niches like 3 times. Like at one point I was like, I'm going to do audio erotica. I did 3 of them. I got bored. I went back to photos. Like you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Exactly.
And people that really, and I think one of my biggest suggestions for people doing online adult content is like, be authentic. I don't know how much like storytelling you do on your OnlyFans or anything, but like, the more you share who you are, that's what creates like loyal fans, in my opinion.
It's true. And it's really nice because I've had a lot of them tell me like they listen to my podcast or they like found me through my work. And I'm like, I mean, not like through work, but like, they just saw my work. Yeah. Like, let me be clear.
Yes.
And that's really nice because I'm like, oh, you see like the whole person I am. Right. And they're so sweet. And of course, they're the asshole ones that like, you know, or just like send a nipple picture. And I'm like, no, I don't send that kind of content.
Yeah. I think moving into these spaces is also a great opportunity to practice boundaries.
Yeah.
Like,
it really is. And I tell the guys, like, you know, you can ask whatever you want. Like when we're talking about customs or whatever, they're like, oh, I'm not sure. Like I'm like, ask whatever you want. I won't get offended by it. Just like respect my answer when I tell you. And sometimes I do have to think about it. They'll be like, are you like, would you do this in a video? And I'm like,
right.
Do I want it? Like, would I do that? And sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. Right. And like my content is very teasing. It's like, that's kind of my niche. Sure. And I was afraid in the beginning that like the guys would get like bored of it because it's just like how much teasing can you do before someone's like, oh, fuck it. Just
right.
Every show.
We're never going to see the nipple.
Yeah.
Like the obsession with the nipple. Like I have a $50 a month Patreon tier where I do show that. And I'm like, people are so curious. They upgrade all the time just to see the nipple. I bet you have. Yeah. And that's the kind of funny like dichotomy of like the fact that female nipples like aren't allowed on social media, which is bizarre. And also there's a huge demand for it because of this.
Yeah, I'm like
the elusive nipple.
Only on video call.
Yeah.
But what was I? Sorry, I just like totally.
No, you're good. OnlyFans, nipples, doing whatever you want. I mean, it's been empowering for me. I think it also goes in waves. I also tell people with adult content, like, it's probably going to ebb and flow. You're not going to get rich overnight. It's a fucking process, and it is a lot of marketing work, you know?
It is. And I mean, I don't do a ton of marketing specifically for the OnlyFans, but I'm just like constantly pushing all of my work.
Yeah.
And that's what brings in subscribers. It's like, I'm also doing this under my name, like, that I use publicly. So, there's a lot to that too. And it's not always safe to do that, I would say. For me, it was important to use my name because part of me doing the OnlyFans is like a
reclamation.
It's a form of reclamation, and it's like, this is my name. This is what I choose to share.
Yes.
And I also have, again, legal resources so that if somebody does get stalkerish or obsessed or whatever, like, I have help.
Yeah.
But that is kind of the appeal for a lot of my subscribers, is like, they're getting this side of me that nobody else gets, you know? And like, everybody else gets to see like the activism, the work I do, but then like they get to see this sexier side of me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an important thing to touch on for anybody new to sex work or digital sex work. Do you have better terminology? Like, I sometimes kind of like to separate them, but like, I don't know about a good term for like digital. But I feel like it kind of works.
So when I like describe what I do, I say online sex work.
Yeah. That works. Online sex work versus IRL. For both, I think it's important for anybody listening to really think about the name thing. So like for me, I actually did something really subtle, but like if you Google Thea Wayne, my real name, you'll see all of my entrepreneurship. You'll see the companies I've built. Whereas Thea Rose is what the podcast is hosted by. It's what my Patreon is. And it's not so that you can't find the other one. It's just so that there's a little bit of a distinction. And again, it's like, it's not that I'm hiding anything. It feels good to me.
Yeah.
And I had to redo my podcast cover art. Like I went through a process where I was like, I don't want this to be Thea Wayne. I want this to be this like almost persona or just slightly different thing. And I also like the thought of like family members Googling me and just like seeing a very different set of results on Google. So there's ways to do it. You can also fucking come up with a completely different name. Like there are a lot of women who people like listeners, viewers probably think they know these people on Instagram, but like that's not their legal name.
Oh yeah.
So be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Most of the time it's not.
Yeah. But do your research before you just like start all these accounts. Yeah.
And that's a good idea of like the Thea Rose.
It actually really worked. I wasn't sure how it would work with like SEO and Google, but it's pretty separate. So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
That's great.
So what's next for you? What are you working on big picture wise? And
so continuing with the work I do at the firm, like I said, we were like pushing some legislation along with like the cases that we have.
Okay. Could you share the legislation?
21st century anti-stalking bill is a big one.
And that's federal?
No, that's New York.
Okay. Because was that related to the
orders of protection?
Yes, so and only being able to do it if it's intimacy.
Yeah. Intimacy. And I don't know what other states' laws are like, but if you have something similar in your state and you want to talk about doing something similar, like feel free to reach out to me. But that we have some pretty big cases at our firm right now against like big tech companies, which are really could impact things in a really important way.
Yeah.
Which is like, that could be a whole nother episode.
Yes. I would like to have Carrie on at some point, or maybe both of you.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so much fun. Yeah. So there's that. Continuing with the OnlyFans, I have my podcast, Oral Argument Season 3, which will be coming out soon.
You're busy.
Yeah.
Podcasting is like, this just became, for now at least, a full-time job for me over the summer. And it's a full-time fucking job. Like, so you're doing a lot over there.
I can only do it in seasons. It's like a very...
you kind of go hard and then schedule it all out. I'm working on that right now, too. Like, getting the fuck ahead.
I can't... I would not be able to do this weekly, like,
Totally.
Unless I quit, that's not happening. So, and then I'm also doing some writing that I'm, stay tuned for that.
Amazing. Can you talk a little bit about the large tech companies? I heard you mention that earlier in the podcast. I think you were specifically talking about like an OnlyFans and a Meta case, but like, I'm just curious, are the things that you guys are working on relating to like how these tech companies are handling data or what's...
No. So that, there was a case, and I can't remember all those details right now. That's not our case.
Sure.
But we have a few cases against big tech companies that have caused extreme harms to our clients. So, for example, Amazon was knowingly selling chemical being used for suicide to kids.
What?
Sodium nitrite. It's a 99% purity chemical that has no household use. And parents were reporting this to Amazon.
Holy shit.
And they continued to sell it. So we represent several families in our cases against Amazon. So I canceled my account. I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And
so you don't just handle sexual related or image abuse related
right,
crimes.
Right.
I think that's just important to know.
Yeah. We handle like stalking, harassment. We do handle a lot of sex related things, but it's also like tech facilitated harms. So it might be a wrongful death, or something like that. Our firm was our case that like took down Omegle.
What's that?
It was a chatting site that it like matched people on video randomly. So like children with pedophiles.
Jesus fuck. And they knew that was going on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's no longer in existence.
Okay. I want to do a lot more with you and you guys. I feel, yeah. I mean, something about me is that injustice, it's my Libra Virgo shit, but injustice pisses me off and it fuels me to do the best work I do.
I'll tell you about this one law real quick. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. So it's from 1996. And it basically says...
So relevant, I'm sure.
Yeah. It basically says that tech companies are not liable for whatever's on their platforms. Now, what this has been interpreted to be in court is to give tech companies complete immunity from liability for like any of the harms that they cause.
Okay.
So as individuals, we have the ability, if we're harmed by a big company, we can have our day in court. To say, like, you need to pay me for the harms and damages that you've caused.
But that
with
protects
the tech industry, that's what they use to hide behind. Our client, Matthew Herrick, and he's a good friend of mine, he was viciously stalked by his ex-boyfriend using Grindr. His ex made profile after profile impersonating Matthew and was able to manipulate the geolocation services to get 1,100 men to show up to Matthew's home and workplace in like 5 or 6 weeks. And Grindr did nothing.
Grindr has down to like the fucking foot, like of where somebody is.
Yeah. So
because they're like, this isn't our problem.
Yeah. So they use Section 230 as the reason why. So like, talk about like justice. This is an access to justice issue that like tech companies are using Section 230 as a get out of jail free card. They're using it to they're also like blanket censoring any sex related content.
Yes.
But then
that's a whole other
but they don't want to use like the money that they have to actually make safe products.
Yes. Right.
And do so in like a nuanced way. Like you don't have to ban the word sex in order to make a safe product.
I just grabbed the handle Stop Censoring Sex Ed, and I'm working with a group of women to have a conversation with Meta, so I'd love to get you and Carrie involved. But it's about specific words because I'm not going to be able to change every policy that Meta has, but I literally specifically want them to uncensor in when it's typed, sex, pleasure, orgasm, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm working on that right now. But you know, I think what's also scary, something I've learned in the last 6 months, is like, it's really hard to get somebody banned and removed from these apps, from dating apps specifically. So I was actually like not correctly banned from Seeking Arrangements, the sugar dating website. I kept like creating new accounts and deleting them, so they thought I was a bot. But what they did was fucking epic. They fully IP blocked me.
Wow.
So like I could not create an account. I would create an account, but if it was in the same Wi-Fi, the same household, banned within a day.
So they can do it.
They can do it. But like Bumble, I mean, there's a profile, Gangbang Therapy, that I hate on Austin, Texas Field. And it's these 3 men and it's predatory and they're gross. And I mean, I'm pro gangbang, but this account is predatory.
Yeah.
And I have emailed Field so many times. But it's like, so yes, these tech companies could protect people from harmful things, but they don't have to.
Have you ever thought about the fact that like somebody could be impersonating you on a dating app and you would never know because there's no way of like knowing if your photos are being used?
And then the support at Bumble or whatever email address it is to try to explain the whole situation and get a qualified person to help you is like a whole other. I mean, these apps should have teams to help people with this kind of stuff because it's fucking constant.
They have the money. That's the thing.
Yes.
Tech companies have the money.
Yeah. But they're making more money. It's all about the money because they're making more money the more this is running rampant. It's not about...
Exactly. So they're actually incentivized to not do anything.
Yep. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm real fired up. And really appreciate the work you're doing, the work the firm is doing, and just your bravery to do the damn thing over the last decade. So... It's been great.
So much.
Thank you
for having me on. And
more soon, more coming soon as we use our fire to do stuff. So thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode today. Be sure to stay in touch with us on socials at Seggs Talk Radio Podcast. That is SEGGS Talk Radio Podcast.